Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out.
Peace, family. It's your friend Open Hands, and on behalf of the Meeting of the Minds fam, we'd like to welcome you all to 2023. For those of you who follow the show, you may know that we have something of a tradition where at the beginning of each solar new year, we like to take some time and think back on people that we've lost over the course of the last year. People that have transitioned on from the physical world, but through our stories and our remembrances, we can bring them with us into the future. So if you will, take a trip with us, and we're going to take a moment to think back on some of the incredible individuals inside and around hip-hop culture that have transitioned on in 2022. This is the 2023 update to Always Remembered. We're going to begin with some individuals that are related to hip-hop, not necessarily in the traditional ways you might expect of practicing an element, but are very important to the culture. James Prigoff passed on in 2022. James was one of the co-creators of Spray Can Art with Henry Chalfant. Spray Can Art is a book that was known for exposing the beauty of the art form of graffiti to the world, not just in New York, but also in international cities, Barcelona, Venice, and cities around the United States. It was also infamously noted as the second most stolen book in London at one time. Another thing inspiring about James is he went to the prestigious Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, to study industrial engineering. He went into the corporate world from there and held high-level positions at Levi and Sara Lee, but decided to leave all of that behind to pursue a passion, and his passion was photography. The photography that he took brought graffiti to another level in the world. He was known for a quote that he stated once about what it was when people were considering the nature of graffiti, and he said, "Vandalism may be a matter of a point of view, but it is clearly art." And that statement solidified and made a place for graffiti on bookshelves around the world. We remember James Prigoff. James Mtume passed on last year. Some of you will recognize the name Mtume as the band named after James, which produced the song Juicy Fruit, famously sampled by Biggie on his first hit to the world, Juicy. Not only was that an impactful moment in hip-hop because of that sample, it's also worth noting that James Mtume produced that song, programming the drums on the Lindrum M1, predecessor of the Akai MPC series, one of the drum machine progressions that, when used by hip-hop, created an entire new world of music production. And as a forebearer in that, also known for being part of Miles Davis's electric band in the mid-'70s, for writing for people like Roberta Flack, Donny Hathaway, and Stephanie Mills, and also for creating a style of music that James himself referred to as sophistifunk. He laid contributions into the scene of music that had far-reaching effects in hip-hop culture and in hip-hop songs. We remember James Mtume. Some people will recognize the name Garry Owens outside of the northwest corner of the United States. People in Seattle will definitely remember him fondly. Garry was one of the first Black Panthers in Seattle. He also co-founded the University of Washington's first Black Student Union and helped work and grow many student and local organizations for justice. Garry passed away from complications of COVID and pneumonia. And in remembering his life, many people thought back to not just the large accomplishments that he made, but also how they saw themselves in him, how him telling his story of growing up in Rainier Beach and moving around Seattle gave life to other people's stories, how he took young people under his wing and mentored them. For the works that he did on a major level of helping to create some of the most impactful organizations in Seattle, and also for the work that he did spreading out into the world by the young people that he touched, Garry Owens will be fondly remembered. This is a big one, so we're going to take a moment on this. Albert Woodfox passed away last year. Some of you will know Albert's name as one of the Angola Three men imprisoned in solitary confinement for over 100 years collectively in Angola, the United States' largest maximum security prison in Louisiana. Albert himself was confined for over 40 years in solitary confinement. It seems that his political awakening was happening as he went into the prison industrial system. He would go on to found the only Black Panther Party chapter founded inside of a prison. Him and his comrades, I've heard stories, were ripping up copies of Frantz Fanon's Wretched of the Earth and passing one chapter around to one person, one chapter to another, so that if one got confiscated, the rest of the chapters would continue to circulate amongst the inmates. They'd create multiple political actions inside the prison, from labor organizing with other inmates, to creating political study groups, to even creating a security force that would safely escort new inmates into the prison population. Well, one thing must have led to another, and at one point, Albert and 3 other activists were fingered by another inmate for the murder of a prison guard. Later came out that that inmate was promised clemency by the warden if he helped to close the case. He did help to close the case and was awarded clemency. Despite 2 other inmates testifying that Albert was having breakfast with them at the time of the murder, and an abundance of physical evidence at hand, which linked none of the activists to the killing, including a bloody fingerprint on the scene that didn't belong to any of them, Albert and one of the other defendants, Herman Wallace, were convicted for the murders by 2 all-white juries. They were both sentenced to life without parole. For 20 years, Albert was held in a special section of the prison without a lawyer, while he used the tiny amount of time he had outside of his cell to teach other inmates math, political theory, and even how to read. In 91, a judge overturned his conviction on constitutional grounds, but before he could be released, he was indicted again after a politically charged trial. In 2014, Albert's murder conviction was overturned again, citing racial discriminations in the jury selection process. Almost immediately, he was re-indicted. A year after that, Albert Woodfox was offered a no-contest plea to manslaughter charges that would facilitate his immediate release. Despite public insistence of his continued innocence, he accepted the plea. And on February 19, 2016, his 69th birthday, he was released from prison after over 4 decades in solitary confinement. State authorities kept him in a cell measuring 2 by 3 meters for 23 hours a day, with 1 hour of exercise a day alone in the yard where he remained shackled. He came out, lived his life in the sunshine until August 4th of 2022, when he passed away from COVID complications. Albert Woodfox was 75 at the time of his death. His story of spending 42 years in solitary confinement and coming out still with spirit intact is an inspiration, but it's also a reminder how dark and dangerous the prison system can be, in ways that the justice system is created unequally. And by looking back on his story, perhaps we can remember to do better and know the work we have to do going into the future. Now onto some music. Daddy I.U passed on this year. Daddy I.U was known for his work on Cold Chillin' Records, the pivotal record label that was also home to Biz Markie, Roxanne Shante, Big Daddy Kane, and more. Biz Markie actually had a hand in signing Daddy I.U, who put out a debut album, Smooth Assassin, in 1990. It had 2 big hit singles on it, Something New and Sugar Free. Some of those songs still ring out today. Daddy I.U would go on to do behind-the-scenes stuff, too, that not a lot of people necessarily knew. He ghost wrote for Biz Markie and Roxanne Shante. He also produced for a lot of rap acts that have made some songs that have made it into the classic archives. Das Effects, Helter Skelter, KRS-One, even Ice-T. We'll miss Daddy I.U. His music will live on. Tame One passed on this year. As part of the group The Artifacts with his partner Elda Sensei, they put out some music that made indelible marks on hip-hop history. On one hand, shining new light on New Jersey as a dope source for MCs and music. On the other hand, putting a new spotlight on graffiti as an element and bringing the elements of MCing and graph together. They made anthems like Wrong Side of the Tracks, which will be held for years as people thinking back on graph when they want something to bump. They even had the sound of the cans rattling in the beat. Tame officially passed on from heart failure, but in a Facebook post, his mother referenced the several prescription drugs he was taking, calling into question possible flaws in the medical system surrounding pharmaceuticals and doctor oversight. His tragic death will remind us that we need to take a closer look at the healthcare system, inequities, and the work that has to be done there, and also reminds us the importance of self-care. He'll be missed. If you're a fan of that raw energy that hip-hop could bring out, that rah, rah, rah that we used to love so much in the 90s, you're going to miss Hurricane G. passed on last year from stage 4 lung cancer. Hurricane G came on the scene through Parrish Smith and Eric Sermon, aka EPMD. Also would later share a daughter with Eric Sermon. Through her work with them, she joined the Hit Squad, the hip-hop supergroup, along with MCs like K-Solo, Redman, Das Effects, Top Quality, the Knuckleheads. She became a favorite in the culture for bringing that super live energy to the point where she started to get sought out just to be on the hook to make the song louder. With a career of dope coast-to-coast features from Redman to Exhibit, and even an album she released with Thurston Howell III, there are these moments that can only be Hurricane G. And when you heard her, you knew. Well, for now, we'll have to listen to her on those moments of the past and keep her memory strong. Don Newkirk passed on this last year. As a Native Tongues collaborator and one of the first artists signed to Def Jam Records, he made some real interesting marks on the culture. Fans of the 80s and 90s hip-hop will definitely remember his voice as the game show host on De La Soul's acclaimed 3 Feet High and Rising, or the announcer on Third Base's classic Gasface. And now for the Prime Minister, Sinister Pete Nice. Aside from bringing laughs and comedic voiceovers, he took chances, experimenting and innovating with music, often working with some of hip-hop's most interesting characters. Projects like Brookzilla. A lot of people slept on this one. That was a supergroup idea with Ladybug Mecca from Diggable Planets, Prince Paul, and a Brazilian MC, which mixed rapping and singing, English, Brazilian, Portuguese, and tons of musical styles. He took big risks, and those risks went on to open the doors and create comfort zones for other MCs and musicians in hip-hop to try to innovate and do new things. Don Newkirk will be missed. This one. Coolio passed on this last year. This is a character that many people have different thoughts about. His music, huge songs like Gangster's Paradise or Fantastic Voyage put him on the map. But interestingly, this is one of those people who created a persona that became known way outside of his music. Even thinking about the people that remembered him, you could tell that the thoughts and the reflections that came back came from people like Lou Diamond Phillips, the actor, ball players like Matt Bonner. They weren't just remembering his songs and how they impacted him, but experiences they'd had hanging out with him on a personal level. I remember this time hearing an interview with Ras Kass, who did a song with Coolio, and hip-hop purists were like, man, why you put Coolio on a song like that? And I can't remember the exact phrasing that he did, but Ras Kass said something to the effect of, because he's my friend, and some things mean more than music. I appreciate and love him, so we did that track together. Coolio was a person that made that mark on people with his personality, and he'll be remembered. DJ 50 Grand passed on this last year. It's funny how history tells stories and someone's legacy could be so tied to a moment or another individual. Well, aside from being a dope DJ, 50 Grand's remembered for the marks he made on history with Biggie Smalls. Biggie must be the most famous person ever graced the unsigned hype column of The Source magazine. That column highlighted his demo tape. The demo tape went on to Puffy, Bad Boy Records, King of New York. The rest is history. Well, DJ 50 Grand produced that demo tape. The legend of Biggie also says that the street buzz that got Puffy interested, that led to one thing and another, all began with a battle he had on Bedford and Quincy in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. Biggie ate up everybody, and the buzz started. He became the dopest rapper in the neighborhood. DJ 50 Grand was playing the music at that battle. He would later go on tour with Biggie and continue on with his own career. But for those marks he made in history, those little moments of contribution, things changed forever. We'll remember DJ 50 Grand. Now on to some more contemporary musicians. Takeoff from the group Migos was killed this year in a bowling alley in Houston. This group with huge songs making this giant imprint on pop culture that are everywhere, bringing pride to their city, Atlanta, and the South, even walking Floyd Mayweather out during his fight. Take a look at a group like this who are actually related. It's a family of individuals, and you think about what this young man could have become, where maturity could have taken him if his life was not taken by senseless violence. We'll remember him. Another act of violence that took a young man's life, PnB Rock, the rapper and singer, was shot in a Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles in Los Angeles this past year. A big debate went on afterwards if the attempted robbery that took his life would or wouldn't have happened if his location was given away from Instagram. And it brings huge questions to mind about what fame and celebrity mean, what hunger on the streets mean, and what we have to do to protect ourselves. We'll remember him. We're going to round out this year's memorials by turning to South Africa, a hip-hop community that lost 3 individuals in a short period of time. DJ Dimples, a prominent DJ, died of a brain hemorrhage. Aside from releasing hit songs and even being nominated for a South African Music Award, he's also known for playing a big role in ensuring that hip-hop had a place in the South African entertainment scene. He'll be remembered dearly. DJ Citi Lyts also passed on. Another prominent DJ, the younger brother of the also late hip-hop legend Pro Kid out of South Africa, he was ambushed and shot to death in Soweto. He was also not just known for his music, but for being a tireless figure who didn't just work to uplift hip-hop, but to use hip-hop as a tool for uplifting his community. Many people will remember him. Ricky Rick, one of South Africa's most prominent MCs, took his own life last year. He was found in his recording studio and left behind a wife and 2 children. Ricky Rick, known for blending flamboyance with relatability, navigating successfully through the streets, boardrooms, and even highbrow fashion industry events, was someone that few of his fans understood to what degree he'd been grappling with depression. His death has given rise to renewed conversation about suicide, especially in environments that are grappling with effects from the crimes of colonialism. In coverage from South Africa, it's been noted that the suicide rate in that country is such that on average there are 200 attempted suicides every day. Perhaps Ricky Rick's death will give us a moment to pause and consider the need for us taking a close look at mental health, supporting each other, destigmatizing some of the things that help us to keep these things bottled up and inside and bring people together to try to build community that can prevent tragedies like this from happening in the future. Well, family, thank you for spending this time with us. And we'd like to urge everyone that is here still breathing and in this world to be safe, keep each other healthy, and help us to keep these stories alive because we stand on the shoulders of giants. The work that's been done before us will continue on. And for those that were missed on this list, we'd like to say peace as well. Please keep those stories alive out in the world, and we'll continue to share them with each other. Going on to this new year, we wish everyone the best. And as always, it's peace and love.
Check it out. Check it out. Check it out.